Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1925. The topic is nutrition, and the title is Matching Food Digestion Rates with Meal Timing. I was talking with a client. We were doing a one-on-one, actually not a client yet, maybe a potential client. We were doing a one-on-one, kind of talk about what their goals were and suggestions, and then if they liked the suggestions, they would maybe become a client. But it was fun. It was a fun chit-chat. It's always fun getting to know people and kind of just increase my experience and my exposure, because I can always learn something from those interactions, which I enjoy. One of the things we were talking about was that they work out in the morning, and they were working out fasted. They did a pretty good job with general timing of food throughout the day. They would work out fasted, but they would have the majority of their food during the day after the workout, and then they would taper off their food at night. They had lost some body fat, they had gained some strength, built a little bit of muscle, but things have plateaued. And they were wondering what they could do to get to that next level. One of the things I suggested was to start eating before their workout. They were creating such a deficit of energy by working out fasted that their body was then trying to save any momentary excesses they had during the day when they were eating as body fat. It would save those excesses as body fat to protect against that huge energy deficit the next day. If they were to consume some calories before the workout, the body wouldn't feel as stressed from the workout, and it wouldn't fight throughout the entire day to try to salvage and save what it could to protect body fat, if not actually try to replace some that was lost. So it was a simple change, just eating some calories before they go work out. Now, the challenge was they said they don't like to eat before they work out. And in general, that's because people don't want to take the time and or they don't want to work out with like a full stomach. So I suggested that they consume something that would be faster digesting in order for them to have some energy. They chose oatmeal. They felt bloated and they had absolutely no energy. Why? Because oatmeal is a very slow digesting carb source. It is not an appropriate digestion rate for the timing of the meal that they were having. Hence today's title. So they were consuming something that was slow to digest, high fiber, just something our body does not get great energy from in general is oatmeal for most people I work with. And they were trying to have that and then go work out immediately. That was definitely not the type of food choice that would match their needs. They needed a carbohydrate source that would digest super quickly so it would be into the bloodstream and accessible to the muscles for energy. I suggested that they use a sugary drink. This is what I have a lot of clients use, is like a Gatorade powder, some kind of cheap carb powder, or just literally drink like a juice or a powder, like a sugary drink. And that can help get, number one, I like it because it gives them the carbs. Number two, it hydrates them because people typically wake up dehydrated. So I want them to feel more hydrated for the workouts. So that'll help performance and energy as well. So we get kind of a double benefit is they get the carbohydrates for energy, plus they get the hydration for energy. So that helps a lot. Now, this person said they were opposed to sugar. Not going to do it. But could they have fruit instead? And I was like, sure, what the hell's the difference? One is liquid sugar, the other one's like solid food sugar. It's fructose, which is fruit sugar, compared to glucose, which is just like what we consider basic sugar. So fructose is still a sugar. It just people think fruit is healthier because it has vitamins and minerals. And in general, if I had to tell someone, what kind of, should they have a Gatorade or an apple? Yeah, you're going to have the apple. That's going to in generally be a better choice. But if you're looking at a pre-workout, meaning you're going to consume this and then in like 15 minutes work out, there's not really an energy difference between like a fruit and the sugary drink. And I would actually argue the sugar drink's better because of the hydration factor. And you're not going to have, like sometimes people get an upset stomach from fructose. I've had athletes who do endurance type events and they'll have digestion issues related to too high amounts of fructose. That doesn't happen when we do glucose. So there are circumstances in which fruit would be actually a worse choice than a sugary drink. But it brought to mind the idea of food timing, like digestion rate matching when we eat. So I thought I would share in today's podcast two main ways that I use this concept as just a way to promote some thought, and maybe you can kind of think of how it would work best for you. One of the ways I use it is pre-workout. Basically, I ask myself, how close am I eating to my workout? So if I'm eating now, when am I going to work out? If I'm about to work out, meaning like I wake up and I want to go right into my workout, or it's been 3, 4, 5 hours and I'm just now get a chance to get some food in, but I also have to start my workout immediately, then I'm going to focus on sugars and I'm going to focus on a drink. Begin because I want hydration, and begin because I want the energy of the food I'm consuming to be into my bloodstream and usable as fast as possible. So sugary drinks work great for that. I'll typically start the drink as I can, meaning before the workout, but I'll usually continue to kind of milk it out and drink it during the workout as well. So I typically will start it before the workout and then not finish it until about halfway through the workout. That prevents a little bit of like an energy crash that you might have, that people might experience. I also typically, if I have situations where I can control everything, I'll have 200 milligrams of caffeine with that as well. And the 200 milligrams of caffeine that I start at the beginning of the workout and carry through to the middle of the workout gives me pretty good energy to go through the rest of the workout. So that's a good mixture that I really like, and I do recommend a lot to clients. If I'm a little further away from the workout, say 15 to 30 minutes, that's kind of a fun spot because you can eat like muffins or cookies or have cereal. You can have solid food, fast digesting carbohydrates. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's something you want to do all the time. I'm not going to, have 10 cookies every day. You still have to count the calories, and you have to watch the fat content to make sure it doesn't get too high that it actually takes longer to digest than you thought it would. But foods that are solid food items that digest quickly, relatively quickly, like simple carbohydrates, are okay in that kind of 15 to 30 minute window. So that could be fruit. Maybe you have a banana, that would be a good choice there, some berries, whatever. But, cereal's totally fine, muffins fine, cookies fine, stuff like that. Then 30 to 90 minutes before the workout, I'm going to want more of like a whole food meal, but I want something that still digests relatively quickly. I actually did that today. I had tuna and rice, and that's something, I don't really enjoy tuna, to be honest, but it's very lean and it's cheap. So if I have tuna and jasmine rice, I can eat that. I can feel full, but still have some good energy in 30 to 60-ish minutes without starting to feel like hungry again if I wait that full 60 to 90 minutes. Meaning if I want to work out at, say, 10, I can eat this meal around kind of like 8:30, 9, and feel good energy and go into the workout without feeling like I have food in my belly. I have the energy and feeling pretty good. If I eat at 8, a lean protein and a faster digesting kind of complex carb, if I eat that at 8, I might start to feel a little bit hungry around 10, but then I'll typically have my protein drink or like a little bit of a sugar drink, or I'll just get into the workout and deal with it. But if I am further out than, say, 2 hours, I would feel hungry again and actually need to eat again. So if I'm further than 90 minutes away from a workout, then I'm going to focus on complex carbohydrates. And I'm typically going to pick a more complex protein source, or even a protein source that has some fats. So for me personally, I find that chicken breast takes a little bit longer to digest. It has a little more staying power than tuna. So I can have a chicken and rice meal, and that'll actually make me feel a little fuller for a little longer than a tuna and rice meal. Now, I've played with nutrition my whole life. I started this journey when I was 15 years old. I'm 40 now. I have had a bajillion diets where I've played with every protein and carb source and fat source you could think of. One time for like a month straight, only ate sweet potatoes as my carb source. I only ate oats as a carb source. I only ate jasmine rice as a carb source. I've played with a bunch of different things at a bunch of different times. So I've had a lot of experimentation to find out, okay, this meal at 90 minutes is good compared to this meal at 120 minutes, or this meal at 30 minutes is better than this meal at 60 minutes. It just takes some trial and error, but at least through today's podcast, I can get you some idea of where to start or what to look for categorically. But that's something I do where I try to think of digestion rate of the food I'm eating versus what I need from that meal. Pre-workout, I'm always going to ask myself the question, how close am I eating to my workout? Again, if it's 15 minutes or less, you're going to want some sugary stuff that digests super quickly. I would recommend a sugary drink. 15 to 30 minutes, you can have whole food, sugary stuff, fruit, muffins, cookies, cereal. 30 to 90 minutes, you want complex foods, but faster digesting. So that would be like the white foods. So white rice, white bread, white potato compared to, brown rice, sweet potato, wheat bread. Those are the things that those non-white sources, like the non-refined sources, you're going to want probably at 90 plus minutes away from the workout. And then at 90 plus minutes, you're going to introduce some fats into the meal. You might introduce more complex and slower digesting proteins. So for example, ground beef is going to digest a lot slower than like a white fish. So if I'm at 3 hours away from the workout, I'm going to probably pick a ground beef before I would pick white fish. But if I'm 60 minutes before the workout or 90 minutes before the workout, then I'm probably going to pick whitefish over beef. So it depends on when I'm eating to what digestion rate I want for the food that I'm eating. The other time that I pay attention to is post-workout. In a perfect world, I want something quick and slow. What I mean by that is I want to have some whey isolate protein powder immediately after my workout. And then within 20 to 30 minutes, I'm going to cook and prepare a food meal, and then I'll have something that's slow digesting. So one of the things I commonly do is if I'm training, like say in the evening, I'll have my drink beforehand. I'll drink some like carbohydrate drink, or maybe I'll just have whole food leading into that time. So I'll get the workout in. I'll then have a whey protein shake, and then I'll eat steak and rice. If I've already had a lot of carbs that day, I might wave off the rice and just do the steak. But I'll have steak because it's a very slow digesting protein source, and it'll last more into the nighttime as it releases the protein into the bloodstream. So it's a much better protein source before a long period of not eating than a lean protein source would be, such as whitefish, chicken breast, tuna, things like that. If I'm eating in the middle of the day, let's say I know, oh man, I'm eating now, but it's going to be like 5 hours or more until I can eat again. I still pick a high-fat food, so steak and rice, and I'll probably have the rice because I'm going to be up and moving and active. But if it's less than 5 hours to my next meal, say I'm eating now and I'm like, I do have the chance to eat again in 3 hours, and that'll help me get more protein in through the day. So I'm going to eat a leaner meal now, so I'm actually still hungry in 3 hours. I don't want to eat a high-fat content meal now, then in 3 hours realize I'm not hungry for that meal. So playing around with post-workout meal options is helpful depending on when I get a chance to eat again. So pre-workout, my question is how close am I eating to my workout? Whereas post-workout, I think when am I going to get to eat again? Those are the questions I'll typically consider, and then choose food choices per meal depending on the answer to those questions. So again, if it's pre-workout, 15 minutes or less, sugary drink, 15 to 30 minutes, whole food, but still sugary, fast-digesting food. 30 to 90 minutes, carbohydrate, but like a refined source of carbohydrate, like a white source. 90 plus minutes, then I'm going to do complex carbohydrates, non-refined. Post-workout, my question is, when am I going to get to eat again? As much as I can, I try to have a protein drink right after the workout. And then I'd say, okay, if I'm not going to eat for a long time, I want a high-fat meal with good protein source. If I'm going to be eating again relatively quickly, I want a low-fat meal with good protein source. There you go. So I thought that would be fun to just discuss and talk about the thought process behind choosing foods you have at a meal depending on the situation of that meal. Awesome. If you have any questions, you need anything, just shoot me an email. My email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. If you like the podcast, please share the podcast. If you like the podcast, please consider donating to support the podcast, which you can do on our website. Also, if you like the information we share in the podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.